morning. It is Tuesday, August 11, 2015. This is your morning edition on I-24 News. Coming up later today, Donald Trump refuses to apologize for his comments during the Republican debate, but still maintains the GOP lead with 23% support in the polls. Racial tensions are high again in Ferguson, Missouri, where dozens of protesters are arrested after blocking rush hour traffic on a highway outside the city, part of events commemorating 1 year since the killing of unarmed black teenager Michael Brown. And here in the Middle East, 3 terror attacks rattle Turkey as the country steps up its involvement against the Islamic State organization in Syria and Kurdish rebels in Iraq. Good morning, I'm Yael Levi, and we begin today in the United States, the GOP race and its most controversial and colorful candidate, Donald Trump, of course. While Trump remains adamant in his refusal to apologize for the blood comment, one that many may call misogynist, he directed against the comment that he directed against moderator Megyn Kelly in last week's GOP debate, causing quite the public and media roar. These comments do not seem to have affected his candidacy position. The most recent polls conducted after the debate by NBC and SurveyMonkey Polling and published on Sunday indicate that he is still in the lead, with the support of 23% of Republican primary voters who followed the debate. Trailing far behind him is Ted Cruz with 13%. A second poll by Morning Consult put Trump at 32%. But the poll also demonstrates how divided Republicans are with regards to Trump. While 18% pegged him to be as the debate winner, 29%, of course, questioned and labeled his performance as the worst out of all candidates. Other debate victors include former HBCO Carly Fiona, currently the only female out of the 17 contenders, who bested Trump, and all others, with 22% of those polls having ranked her performance as the best one. She has subsequently risen to number 4 in the overall standing. Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio also scored favorably among voters. Where does Jeb Bush stand? Far behind. So, what does this all mean at this still very, very early stage of the race? Joining me in studio, very happy to have her here, is political analyst Dr. Dalia Scheinling. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on the show.
Have you with us. Of course, our own Ami Kaufman, who lives and breathes the American race. God knows why. Good morning. But before we break this down, let's watch the report from yesterday's developments on ABC News, where they were basically breaking down the Trump success. Let's have a look.
There is no reason for him to apologize. His words directed toward Fox News anchor Megyn Kelly after her question during the debate about what he called some women in the past. Tonight, why no apology, and Hillary Clinton on what Trump said about Megyn Kelly. Here's ABC's Tom Yamas.
Tonight, Donald Trump refusing to back down from these provocative comments about Fox News debate moderator Megyn Kelly.
You could see there was blood coming out of her eyes. Blood coming out of her wherever.
And now, Democratic challenger Hillary Clinton taking him on.
I know it makes great TV. I think the guy went way overboard, offensive, outrageous, pick your adjective.
But Trump telling George on This Week he was not referring to anything inappropriate when he talked about blood.
I was referring to nose, ears. They're very common statements, and only a deviant would think of what people said.
Even declaring Kelly owes him an apology for asking this.
You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account...
Only Rosie O'Donnell. The fact is, she asked me a very inappropriate question. She should really be apologizing to me. You want to know the truth.
Though few of Trump's competitors took him on during the debate, the Kelly criticism bringing an anti-Trump chorus.
That's a sideshow.
This is not who we are as a party when it comes to women.
There's no excuse for this.
I don't think vulgarity equates with insight.
Give me a break. I mean, do we want to win? Do we want to insult 53% of all voters? What Donald Trump said is wrong.
Republicans haven't won the female vote in a presidential election since 1988. Carly Fiorina, the only female Republican candidate, tweeting, "Mr. Trump, there is no excuse." Trump unleashing on Twitter, tweeting back, "I just realized that if you listen to Carly Fiorina for more than 10 minutes straight, you develop a massive headache. She has zero chance."
David, Trump is back out on the campaign trail tomorrow night in Michigan. Then he heads to New Hampshire and Iowa later in the week,
promising to release detailed plans on immigration reform and job creation, something he has yet to do as a candidate. David?
Tom Yamas on the campaign trail again tonight for us, and we do have one more question on this, so let's get right to ABC's chief White House correspondent Jonathan Karl now on Martha's Vineyard traveling with the president. But, John, I wanted to get back to that moment, the debate. Candidates asked to raise their hand if they would not rule out a run as an independent.
Mr. Trump.
Trump, the only one to raise his hand, the crowd booing. And, John, you reported today growing pressure on Trump from Republicans to change his stance. But you've also talked to Donald Trump, so what's he saying tonight?
Well, Republican leaders have been pleading with Trump to take a pledge that he would not run as an independent under any circumstances. There have even been suggestions that he could be kicked out of future debates if he doesn't make that promise. But I just got off the phone a short while ago with Mr. Trump. He told me that he might eventually take that pledge, but for now the threat remains. If he is not treated well by party leaders, he will not rule out running as an independent. As for the threat that he could be left out of future debates, he told me he doesn't worry about that in the least.
All right, says he's not worried about that. John Karl tonight. John, thank you.
Well, clearly we can see what a storm Donald Trump and the Republican race is stirring in the United States. Joining us from Lawrence, Kansas is Times of Israel political and Washington correspondent Rebecca Shimoni-Stoll. Rebecca, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Reactions to these, astounding numbers. And I'm going to say this as a woman who has no stake in this race, sitting in the Middle East, because I find this really infuriating. But the reaction in the United States to these astounding numbers coming out of polls where Donald Trump is leading double digits in that race. What are the reactions there?
Well, there's a lot of discussion about what exactly the Trump burst or the Trump bubble means. And I think it's significant that Trump is still leading. Trump is still doing well. It's interesting to look also at who else has done well coming out of these debates. And one of the most bizarre outcomes is probably one of the other people who have benefited the most from the debates is, in fact, the lone female candidate in the Republican field. And there certainly has been a backlash, particularly regarding Trump's comments about Megyn Kelly, the Fox News woman.
Right. Rebecca? I think we may have lost Rebecca. Time to turn to Dr. Dalia Scheinling. Explain to me, okay, I mean, you are also American. We're sitting here in Israel. Explain to me numbers as such. I know this is very early in the game, but is this some type of indication to what we're going to look at the Republican race? I've been sitting in the studio saying for the past several days that back in 2004, I think it was, many of my American friends promised me that there's no chance in hell that Arnold Schwarzenegger will become the governor of California. Okay, but that happened. Is there a chance for this?
There's always a chance, as the best pollsters and the best political analysts know never to say never, especially in Israel. But in America, I would say that for a number of reasons, it looks unlikely that Trump is going to really break out to be the candidate, to be the nominee. And that's why many analysts now in the U.S. don't really think he can. And the main reason is that, first of all, the Republican race is so divided. You have 17 different candidates. And a lot of people think that even though he seems to be polling in relatively high numbers, that's somewhere between 19 and 25%, that he may have maxed out. And the fact is that his high poll numbers, let's say 25 or so percent, haven't really gone up since the debate, which is always an indicator. Usually a debate gives a bump to somebody who is perceived as the winner, and he didn't really get that bump. The other thing is that he may have maxed out. The other thing is that he demonstrated a lot of defiance, a lot of exciting, provocative headlines, and I think that you have a bunch of really disaffected Republicans, certainly the more extreme wing of the party. Tea Party supporters show a little bit of disproportionate support for him. And so they seem to like him right now, but what happens when the rest of the party says, wait a second, he's too extreme for us, and we don't really know what the substance is? It's hard to see how they're going to find him a legitimate candidate when we know that there are also about 13% of Americans who call themselves independents.
Right.
And those people are critical for this race. If Trump is going to become too wild as a candidate, the other Republicans know that he's going to alienate them, and it's going to be hard for the voters to justify bringing in a candidate who will be so problematic for their party. So
problematic, apropos alienating. But back to Rebecca Shimoni-Stoll, who joins us now on the phone from Kansas. Ask if you heard what Dr. Scheinling just said. In that respect, you started saying about the only female runner within the GOP race. Is this a situation where he's basically bumping her up? Rebecca.
Well, that's a very interesting question. She, of course, wasn't in the main show debate. She was in kind of the sideshow debate earlier in the day, and she did quite well. She clearly emerged as the winner, so to speak, of the losers debate. And actually, her numbers are now pulling her well enough to get her into the main debate in the next round if she keeps it up. So I think part of the support for her is really on her own merit. She did an excellent, excellent job. Part of the support from her may well be coming from discussed, particularly conservative women who have rallied behind Megyn Kelly after the debate.
I'm rallying behind Megyn Kelly, and I'm not a Fox watcher myself. But I want to refer people to, before we continue this, because this, what's so fascinating to me, we saw this in the last several election campaigns in the United States, apropos also in the Middle East, is that this is all being carried out on social media. Of course, Donald Trump has not stopped anywhere, or has not stopped his speed, so to speak, after the debate. Over the course of the last 24 hours, or I think after the debate, he put the following thing up on Twitter, where it basically, if we can put that thing up for our viewers, where he's basically, it amazes me that other networks seem to treat me so much better than Fox News. I brought them the biggest ratings in history. I get zip. But then he also runs this entire thing against the Bushes, which is like an Instagram photo and showing no more Bushes, and Megyn Kelly coming up. And joining us from D.C. now also is co-chair of the Republicans Abroad, Mark Zell, who it pains me always not to have you sitting right next to me. Mark Zell joining us from Washington, D.C. Mark, good morning to you.
Good morning, Yael.
Good morning. Listen, I know you're a proud Republican in many, many ways. Aren't you a bit ashamed? Because I will sit here and I will say, I find Trump remarks, he's a misogynist. He says horrific things about women. I do not understand what his platform is, what is the substance of his campaign, but it seems to be working with Republican voters. How do you explain that?
Well, as always, Yael, you start off with a preface, which I've got to disagree with. I don't like Trump's language. I don't like his style, and I certainly don't like his remarks about women. But what he has done, and in fact, I just got off the phone not long ago with one of the advisors to one of the other major candidates for president, is his controversial remarks have generated a huge public interest in the election and the Republican primary. 24 million people watched the debate. I was present at the debate on Thursday evening, and another 6 million watched the what they call the happy hour debate, the first debate, and then I'm told another 8 million watched followed the debate on social media. So this is something just unprecedented.
It's unprecedented. But Mark, stay with me here, because please stay with me, because I'm going to ask also Dr. Shanling in this, and you as well. Aren't they watching because it's a bit of a circus? Because Trump is a bit of a circus with these remarks, and isn't that the danger?
Look, Trump, they're watching because Trump has struck a nerve. They are watching. People are angry among the voters, not just among Republican voters, by the way. The American electorate is angry at the way things are done in Washington, whether they're done by Democrats or Republicans. And Trump has, in his quite ugly and unorthodox way, has touched this nerve and has got the American public angry, and they're watching this. And they're watching this, and they're interested in this. And by the way, when they're watching these debates, it may be that Trump is the reason that they are tuning in, but they're staying tuned in, and they're listening not only to Trump, but to the other 16 candidates. And this is important. This is important because the debate that went on both during the first debate in the afternoon and at the debate I attended on Thursday evening was substantive and serious. And the candidates that participated in that debate, in addition to Trump, had a lot of important things to say. And even Trump, I have to say, had some important things to say about the process. I don't agree with what he did with Megyn Kelly, both during the debate and afterwards.
It's quite shameful.
But what he did do, and the others, was to focus attention on many issues across the board. It was a very interesting debate in the hall. It was enthralling and electric. And the American public is engaged. That's good for the party. That's good for democracy.
No, people are engaged. I beg to differ when it comes to the remarks that are getting them engaged. Dr. Schonling, I want to ask you, when it comes to the other side, because Hillary Clinton already came out quite forcefully against those, tweets of Donald Trump. What does this do for the other side? Does this boost, if we're looking at polls, at recent polls coming out after this debate, does it boost her position within the Democratic Party? Does it boost the Democratic Party in that respect?
Well, remember, America is very divided, so let me take a bit of issue with what my colleague has said. I mean, yes, certainly Americans all want Washington to do better, just as everybody wants their governments to do better, and people are always suspicious of politicians. Right. But the Democrats, this is a very divided country. Democrats aren't nearly as unhappy with their politicians as Republicans are, which is one of the reasons why we see some sort of success for a rather, outlying, extreme, unusual, and definitely outsider and and non-substantive politician like Trump. On the Democratic side, Hillary's running strong already, and I think the biggest difference right now between the two parties that should be clear to everybody going into this race is that Hillary has more than 2-to-1 lead over the closest contender, Bernie Sanders. Even though he's maybe incrementally doing a little better, for the most part, what we have is a much more unified party on the Democratic side, and that's clearly hurting Republicans right now because you have a situation where the sort of Republicans who are angry at their Republican leaders for not doing a good enough job at pulling the country in the direction they want to go say, well, we want this exciting protest outsider candidate. But when they find out that he doesn't have enough substance, that he is offensive and extreme, certainly to women, and you're running against a woman candidate who's running very strongly, well, then they're sort of they're going to be pushed away from him eventually, but then have to go back to a field full of 16 other candidates who they're not that excited about, at least not yet. Okay, all this could still change, but going into this race, you have a much more consolidated and unified party around Hillary's candidacy, and certainly when we look at the women, the issue of women, I mean, she's a much stronger contender. She stands to do better than Obama with women, and remember that certain portions of women in the American electorate are now practically kingmakers, or should I say queenmakers, given that unmarried and upper-educated women basically put Democrats into office in previous years, and that's a growing portion. But there's certainly more potential among women in general, considering this long entrenched perception and reality that Republican policies have not been good for women. And the fact that the debate is becoming so extreme on the Republican side right now, especially with issues with relation to abortion, and that you have some of these 16 other candidates competing with Trump to be outlandish, coming up with very extreme positions on things like pro-choice issues, abortion issues.
Planned Parenthood under attack.
Not just Planned Parenthood. I mean, top contenders saying that they wouldn't even support the woman's right to abortion in the case of rape or incest. This is going to drive women away, especially those moderates and independents that the Republicans would need.
Definitely. Yes.
Two things I want to just add to this discussion, this very interesting discussion, is that this thing is not only dividing the Republican Party, it's also dividing Trump's campaign. His campaign staff. His campaign staff, apparently, according to reports, is now divided after what happened in the Fox News debate.
They've also resigned.
His top campaign advisor or his manager resigned. Trump said he fired him, of course. Which is, exactly. Okay. It's also very important to remember this is a real issue about Trump versus Fox, or is Trump with Fox. Fox is basically part of the Republican Party, and there's a big issue about how Trump is treated by Fox, as he mentions by himself. There was a conversation, a telephone call between Trump and the CEO of Fox, Roger Ailes, saying that they burned the hatch and everything is fine on out. But we know that the owner of Fox, Rupert Murdoch, is not happy with Trump at all.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting to see how Fox is going to continue its coverage with Trump and if things are really going to be
that's
okay
fascinating. The rejiggering of Fox News. Mark, I see you nodding on the other side. Yes.
Well, look, first, I don't know the folks on your show. They're obviously highly partisan. I mean, I guess your viewers have come to that conclusion. The female commentator made a statement that Hillary is running strong.
Dr.
Well, that may be true. That may be true with respect to a non-entity like Bernie Sanders, but her polling on issues like favorability and trustworthiness is under the bus.
So is Donald Trump, for that matter.
Excuse me. I mean, excuse me.
And every other Republican candidate.
What?
So is Donald Trump's, as a matter of fact, was said here.
So it's Donald. I didn't understand what you said, but anyway.
His favorability is also low.
His favorability is also low.
As you correctly pointed out, Americans are suspicious of their politicians, and favorabilities are low.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump is not a serious candidate. In a very short period of time, the public will get tired of his antics, and they will go back to the issues. The statement that the 16 other candidates are not serious and are extreme and are dealing with. I mean, if you were with me in the hall that evening, you would have had a very different understanding of what's going on. Hillary Clinton's in trouble, by the way. And that's why the Democrats are seriously considering a Biden candidacy. In fact, at this point, I mean, Hillary Clinton for the Republicans, I'll tell you, is the ideal candidate. She is not personable. She is deemed to be untrustworthy. She's got a serious problem with a possible indictment for violating U.S.
Similarly with China. China's rise is the.
But there, that said, that said, Mark, but no, just because we have to wrap this up. I do think that in any event, we can all agree around this table, right, that it's going to be a very fascinating race. Personally, just to quote the late Jon Stewart, that's a joke, okay? I'm glad Trump is still in the running because he gives us things to discuss. And Mark, you come back soon from the United States because irrespective of our differing opinion, we do miss you. I want to thank you all for being with me on this one as we move along.
Pleasure.
Okay, time for the news you missed while scanning the headlines as we lock Dr. Dalia Schandling in the studio with us. So, Ami Kaufman, the man, the bow tie, what did we miss?
We're going to start with stuff close to home. Two Druze were indicted yesterday for lynching a wounded Syrian en route to Israeli hospital.
2 months ago.
This happened in June in Majd al-Shams. This apparently was allegedly a warrior of the Nusra Front. Israel has been taking some of these people in to be treated in their hospitals. We have a report about this. Let's check it out.
Let's have a look.
On June 22nd, these images shocked Israel. It happened in Neve Ativ on the border between Israel and Syria. A massive gathering of young adults violently attacking 2 wounded Syrians, being transported in an Israeli army ambulance. In spite of warning shots fired by soldiers, the mob of pro-Assad Druze from the Golan kept on pushing. The wounded were forced out of the ambulance and dragged to the ground. They were then literally stoned and lynched using wood planks and iron bars. It lasted several long minutes until the mob was certain the 2 Syrians had died from their injuries. Almost a month after the incident and after having interrogated more than 50 suspects, an Israeli court has indicted 2 people for the lynch. The first, Amal Abu Salah, aged 22, was the one seen in the video striking one of the wounded Syrians with a wooden plank. The second, 48-year-old Bashira Mahmoud, was accused of throwing stone blocks at the 2 victims. Druze from the Golan have always considered themselves as Syrian and for the most part have consistently supported Bashar al-Assad. According to the accused, the 2 wounded were part of the Jabhat al-Nusra organization, a jihadist group linked to al-Qaeda. As such, they were seen as potential targets. But for Israel, the 2 victims were only moderate rebels, and in fact, it was not the first time Israel had agreed to transport them for medical assistance. The tribunal at Nazareth has announced that the lynch is part of an ongoing investigation, and additional charges will be filed.
Ami Kaufman, yeah, horrific news as you bring us every morning, but, at least, I don't want to say it's coming to culmination still.
More interesting stuff. Mohammed Alan, who has been starving himself for over 50 days, he is a Palestinian that's been detained, what do you call it?
Administrative detention.
Thank you very much, Dalia.
A very hard contended issue nowadays.
Yes. Was about to be force-fed while he was in Soroka Hospital, but he's been transferred to the Barzilai Hospital in Ashkelon, where apparently there are reports that there might be doctors who are willing to force it. But there are also reports coming out from Barzilai Hospital that there are doctors there that are refusing to do that as well. So we're going to have to see if he will be force-fed or not.
We have to mention 51 days, I think, already.
51 days. By the way, just after a few weeks after Khadr Adnan, another Palestinian, was released after 56 days.
Of a hunger strike.
That was the second time he did that, by the way, and he survived each time amazingly.
Unbelievable. Yes.
Speaking of Israeli policies, in Paris, this is an interesting item. Paris in the summer has this event called Paris Plage. which is like beach festivities. Apparently, Dahlia was just there.
You were there.
And each day they kind of name it after a different city.
Oh, my word.
They were going to name it on August 13th, Tel Aviv Beach Day. And there was an outroar about this. A left-wing politician called Danielle Simonet said that Paris is handling Israel a nice bit of PR on a plate. I fear it will go very badly, and I think it sends a bad message.
Huh.
But listen to Bruno Julliard, who is from the mayor's office in Paris. He says people should distinguish between the brutal politics of the Israeli government and Tel Aviv, a progressive city. He used those words, the brutal politics of the Israeli...
And Tel Aviv, progressive city, which I think, culminates, many ideas of Israelis that when they live here in Tel Aviv, it's a bubble. But Tel Aviv Beach Day, come on, don't hold the French back from having chocolate, banana, ice cream popsicles. Yeah, please. Okay.
But we don't have anything to worry about that because we found a map that ISIS has made. Where Israel
ISIS who also now have an app.
So this is what's going to happen according to ISIS. This is a map.
Oh, good.
By 2020, the world will look like this. Okay? This is a real map. This is made by ISIS.
Yes.
As you can see, the whole Israel, Lebanon, Syria area is called Sham. A large part of North Africa called the Maghreb.
Right.
Khorasan. This is going to happen in 5 years.
What is Khorasan? That's in 5 years. And the land of...
Andalus. I want to live in Andalus.
Yeah, Andalus. That would be good, actually. I don't want to live in Sham.
We're going to be in Sham. The beaches of Sham are fantastic.
The beaches of Sham are sham. We can play with that. Yes. Is that under a new application they just launched on Android?
That's interesting. That's a good...
Maybe fascinating. Yes.
We talked about that yesterday.
And
a few weather items. Typhoon Sodalor in the Far East Asia. First, it started in Taiwan and then just moved into China. In Taiwan, it killed 6 people. We have some footage, I think.
Yeah.
In China, it just killed over 17 people. More than 3 million people have been displaced, causing damage of $1.43 billion.
Yeah.
Here in our region, as we know, it's been very hot. But in Egypt, as we can see from this headline from Madda, 21 people have died in Egypt from the heat, 15 of them in Cairo alone, with 40 injuries.
Wow. No, that's, indeed, I think we're feeling it here in Mumbai.
Oh, yeah, we're feeling it here.
We have, sadly, one last one.
Well, in the Caribbean, there's this algae called sargassum that's taking over the coast of Cancun, and people are basically canceling their vacations all over Mexico and other places in the Caribbean. Because this is happening because of rising temperatures in the oceans.
And foul-smelling seaweed.
Foul-smelling seaweed. Nobody wants to go there. This is really hurting tourism in Mexico.
Very sad, but it goes with my theory that seaweed is bad for you. All the time we have for this segment. Stay with us. When we get back, Turkey, a series of terror attacks. We'll take a closer look. Before anything else, the news. Good morning, I-24 News. On this August 11th, I had to look down. Good morning, Ruthie Sinai, with me in the studio. Thank you. And Ruthie Sinai is here with me because we moved straight to Ferguson, Missouri, where scores of people were arrested in late-night protests marking the first anniversary of the killing of unarmed black teenager Michael Brown by a white police officer last year. Now, the arrest came as authorities declared a state of emergency again in Ferguson after gunfire erupted during protests on Sunday. A man who was critically wounded in an exchange of fire with police has been arrested. The violence also included a drive-by shooting and police being pelted with objects. Now, the death of Brown and a grand jury's decision to spare the officer who killed him, Darren Wilson, last year from criminal charges led to a wave of nationwide demonstration, some of which boiled over into riots and arson. That was all last year. There's a lot of fear that all of this will be happening again. We're first joined from St. Louis by rabbi and human rights activist Susan Talve from the City Central Reform Congregation. Susan, good morning to you. Rather, good night.
Hello.
Good, hello.
Yeah, it's still right here.
I know. Now, Susan, I understand that you are just leaving Ferguson, and that what is the situation in Ferguson right now?
Right now, it's the police are all in riot gear. There are over 100 police, and there's still many protesters out on the street. We stayed as long as we could, but it's we're hoping that the same thing that happened last night doesn't happen, and that the protesters will call it a night. They'll feel that they had a success. They stood down the police for a long time, and I'm just hoping that nobody gets hurt tonight. That's why the clergy go out. You know, we go out to be a witness, to support the protesters, but also to de-escalate whenever we can.
I understand that you were arrested also a short while ago and released as well?
Yes, I was arrested this afternoon at the Federal Justice Center. You know, the Department of Justice in the United States issued a report that said that there were terrible human rights and civil rights abuses in Ferguson. And it was a very important report. It said many, many things, but nothing's really been done. So a huge group of clergy marched on the Department of Justice at the federal courthouse today in downtown St. Louis and said, we appreciate that you've noticed that things are this bad, but now it's time to do something about it.
Now,
and those were our demands. And so we sat in on the Justice Center and we got arrested for, I guess, trespassing.
For trespassing. Hold on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask you just one thing? The police are saying essentially that what happened last night was some sort of a gang war. In other words, an armed confrontation between two rival groups over a television or some such thing. Can you address that claim?
Yes. You know, there's a lot of that going on. We have a lot of gun violence here. I mean, when you compare how many guns there are, you know, in people's hands in Israel and what we have here, the gun violence is outrageous here. People shooting each other, there's revenge killing, there's robberies, there's desperation. But what I want to say about that is that there's a lot of trauma here, a lot of trauma. A lot of these young people especially have suffered trauma just from racism, and also from the tear gas and the rubber bullets and all the other things that they experienced when Mike Brown was killed and over the other events of the year. So people are doing stupid things because they've been traumatized, and they're not getting the mental health, the mental health help that they need. And so there is a lot of tension and there's a lot of infighting. And what we're hoping is that just doesn't undermine the movement, because generally, and the movement is a very peaceful, nonviolent movement.
Now, Rabbi Talvey, I want to ask you, in the year that passed, since the killing of Michael Brown, did something change in Ferguson when it comes to, you know, when it comes to police brutality against African Americans? I'm going to say it out loud. Has something changed?
Yeah.
Has something really changed?
Well, across the country, we've had many shootings of police, and you know what it's shown us is the police have to get different kind of training. Police come in and they shoot. You know, they can shoot because if they feel like their lives are at risk in any way, so they don't try a lot of other things. There's no talking. There's, you know, no trying to get the community involved. We need to do better training. And so what has changed is that a lot of the silent killings that have been going on for years, this is nothing new.
Right.
A lot of the silent killings are not silent anymore because of social media, because of the cameras now that the police have to wear and have on their cars. We're seeing what was always happening but we hadn't seen before. And so because we're starting to know the stories, and more people are outraged by it, I think that is changing things, because it's more and more people are calling for it to stop. And to have the police go back to community policing, where they know people and not just this hotspot kind of militarized policing that we have now.
Because Ruthie Sinai and I are sitting here looking at scenes out of Ferguson that are very reminiscent, I have to say, of the West Bank and in the Middle East, and it's frightening and sad when you look at that, that's going on in the 21st century and what is supposed to be the leader of the free world. If you can stay with us for a minute, because Ruthie, you know, both you and I lived in the United States. You know, you are more established, and I'm a journalist than myself in that respect. But I'm giving you a compliment.
Flattery will get you everywhere.
Yes. Everything. How is this still happening? I mean, with the whole, because it doesn't seem to be already a dirty word to say liberal or, you know, Democrat or something like that in the United States in these days. But at the end of the day, when it comes to civil rights, it seems like the African-American community does not have those.
Yeah, you know, and by the way, there's this fellow who was critically wounded last night who is a classmate of Michael Brown. Tyrone Harris. You know, it's just more of the same. Anyway, look, I think one of the reasons, and our guest put her finger on it at the beginning, is this abundance of guns. You know, I think that these issues of liberals and Democrats and civil rights are one step above all of this basic problem, which is that anybody can get their hands on guns. And you know, when people are outraged and traumatized, as she said, and angry and feeling you know, disadvantaged, that's how they do it. That's what they do. You know, the father of this fellow, this Tyrone Harris, who's lying in critical condition under arrest, by the way, at a hospital because he allegedly tried to shoot at some police. The father said, look, he was trying to make something of himself. He wanted to be an electrician. He actually graduated high school. And you know, this is the kind of life that a lot of the black community leads, trying to, you know, with their fingernails, trying to claw their way out of their
socioeconomic situation. Sad and sadly, on a year on, Rabbi Tave, I really want to thank you. I think it's amazing what you're doing out there in terms of the show of support, and do stay safe. We will be following the Ferguson, Missouri story throughout the day, and obviously throughout the week. Ruthie, thank you for being with me this morning as we move along. More violence, but back in our region. A day of violence in Turkey yesterday. 4 security personnel killed by a roadside bomb in the Sirnak province. That's in Turkey's southeast. Soon after, gunmen fired on a military helicopter in the area, killing a soldier. Following that attack, Turkish helicopters bombed Kurdish Workers' Party, known as the PKK, targets in what they say was retaliation. This, of course, amid high tension between Turkey and the PKK. And Turkey's biggest city, Istanbul, has also been the target of terror attacks. A bomb attack on a police station wounded at least 10 people, including 7 officers. 2 suspected police station attackers and a police officer were killed in a shootout in the city later that morning. Assailants also opened fire on the American consulate building in the city. That seems to be almost like full-blown war out there in Turkey. Now let's see what transpired yesterday in a country that's trying to join both the campaign against the Islamic State in the region, but also take aim at their own enemies. That would be the Kurds and their aspirations. Here's a report of yesterday's events.
A wave of security attacks across Turkey, with assaults in the country's largest city, Istanbul, and in the southeast of the country. Istanbul. 2 Kurdish female fighters opened fire outside the U.S. consulate building in the city, hours after an overnight bomb attack on a police station injured 3 police officers and 7 civilians. No one was hurt in the consulate incident. Turkish police stormed a building in Istanbul where suspects involved in the blast were believed to be hiding. One of the 2 women was captured, and eyewitnesses said she had made her motive clear: revenge.
The policeman was shouting, "Drop your bag, drop your bag." And the woman was saying, "I will not surrender. I came to avenge the attack in Suruç. I will avenge the attack in Suruç." The police warned her again, "Drop your bag or we will have to shoot you." And the woman said, "Shoot."
The Kurdish town of Suruç last month saw a suspected Islamic State suicide bombing, killing at least 30 people, mostly students. Sirnak, in the southeastern region of the country, a roadside bomb killed 4 police officers and 1 soldier was killed when Kurdish militants opened fire on a helicopter in a district nearby. At least 7 other soldiers were wounded in the attack. In retaliation for the attack on the military helicopter, Turkish helicopters bombed targets of the Kurdistan Workers' Party, or PKK. Tensions between Turkey and the PKK had risen since Turkey began an air campaign against Islamic State targets outside its borders last month. The PKK claims Turkey is deliberately targeting Kurdish rebels as well, a charge Ankara denies. PKK leaders accused Turkey of trying to protect IS by attacking Kurdish fighters. On Sunday, the U.S. military sent 6 F-16 fighter jets to one of Turkey's air bases in preparation for an escalation of the conflict along the country's border with Syria.
Joining us quickly first from Istanbul, freelance journalist Arzu Geybullah. Arzu, good morning to you. Is Turkey aware it seems to be on the brink of war?
Good morning to you, too. Well, it's getting there. It certainly is a very tense situation here. I mean, yesterday there have been attacks all over the country. And this is not the first day. I mean, the attacks have been continuing for several weeks now.
Now, is there an understanding of, I mean, is there support in the administration when it comes to also trying to take the campaign against ISIS, against the Kurdish militias or the Kurdish Peshmerga?
They're supporting. It's really difficult to say who they're supporting. Obviously, there's this whole re-election debate and whether AKP, the ruling party, is actually going to form a coalition. So there's a lot of suspense that all of these attacks are actually planned, and this is the AKP's way at getting at its voters who voted for the HDP
and actually
to get seats in the. I'm sorry.
No, to get seats in the parliament for the first time.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
No.
Exactly.
Arzu, yeah, Arzu, do stay with us. I'm trying to see if we have time to also get back to you. We are also joined in studio with me right now is Professor Dror Zaevi. I'm not going to butcher your academic career. Professor Dror Zaevi of the Department of Middle East Studies at the Ben-Gurion University. Is this Erdogan basically taking a battle that is internationally approved against ISIS and using it to try and actually completely demolish Kurdish aspirations on his border?
Absolutely. I mean, there's no question about this. It's a constellation of things. There's the worry about the rising Kurdish state to the south of Turkey. There is this feeling that you want to avenge your loss in the parliament, and there is talk about a new elections coming up in Turkey in a few months, in which Erdogan hopes to eliminate the Kurdish party and get the majority of the votes. It all comes together into, I think, an idea that you are going to use this excuse of the war against ISIS as a way to get your way with the Kurds and finish them off before this new election.
Before this thing, because at the end of the day, I mean, we all know that the Kurds are the only ones making grounds when it comes to within Iraq or Syria on the ground against ISIS, hoping for something in return. Is this something that the international community will allow, and I'm theorizing with you, will allow Erdogan to do?
Well, so far it has.
So far it looks like it, I know.
So far it has. I think the Americans have traded something here. They traded the ability to use Turkish airspace and the Turkish bases in order to attack ISIS in return for allowing Erdogan to attack the Kurds. So I think this is the trade-off that we see right now, and this is going to go on. But the problem is, of course, that Erdogan did not really take into account what's going to happen inside Turkey, and this is what we're seeing right now. These constant attacks in Istanbul, in Ankara, and the southeast against Turkish forces are not going to stop as long as this campaign goes on.
This is actually a reversal to post. I mean, a reversal to post the so-called truce between Turkey and the PKK within Turkey. That we're just seeing a flare-up again. At the end of the day, I'm wondering also, you know, if by the end of the battle against ISIS, the international community will jump in and try to give the Kurds something. But sadly, all the time that we have for us and for Kurdish aspirations. Professor, I want to thank you very much for being with me this morning. When we get back, techno news, Google doing something new to all of us. I don't know what, but Shai Ringel and Ami Kaufman will be here to tell us all about it. So stay with us. First, the news. I-24 news on this August
11. Oh, suddenly you're as if you care.
No, as if I care. I'm sitting here quietly in the dark. Ami Kaufman, the man, the bow tie, straight from Poland. But we are going to start with Shai Ringel, correspondent galore of The Tube, and today, a hot chip in your head.
In our head, yeah.
What does that mean?
What's that?
It's an album.
It's an album?
Band and an album. You should listen to music.
No, Ami and I are of a different
yeah.
generation. Yes. Frank Sinatra did not sing this, so I do not know it. Shai Ringo, with the two, what do you have for us?
Okay, let's talk alphabet.
Please.
Let's start. Google announced that they are no longer Google. They are now Alphabet. You know, one of the most known companies in the world are changing their name.
That's never gonna fly.
That's gonna fly because
why?
They are gonna be a big investment company which has a company named Google. The idea is that Google is now too big. And
it's so big.
It really is.
It's a monster.
It's a monster. It's one of the biggest companies in the world, and it has so many different things that now it has to have a father company and an own company to own Google and Fiber and Nest, which is the electronic company they bought 2 years ago, and 1.5 years ago.
I think the question, I'm going to stop you for a second, the question that's running through my mind, and I'm sure Ami's as well, is now when we open Google, is it going to say Alphabet before the search or Google?
Google.
Thank you. Okay, so that's
my
mind's at ease now.
No, they're going to have a company called Google, which is going to be the web company. It's going to own, Google itself is still going to own Google Maps, Android, YouTube, the search engine. Of course, the search engine is still the thing that brings money into Google. But Google needs all those other companies. Now, Alphabet needs all those other companies because Larry Page, the CEO, which is now going to be the CEO of Alphabet, just want to shoot to the stars, and he wants to have. Isn't he already
there?
Yeah, he wants to have as many companies as possible, and ones that interest him. You know, going on an adventure like Google Car, the automatic driverless car, is something that is not really, still not connected to Google itself. Now, the interesting thing here is that there are a lot of voices in politics that wants Google to be dismantled into these all the companies, because it's now too big. They're thinking AT&T in the 90s that the legislator, the American legislator, just dismantled in order for the market to open.
To open up.
Yeah. So this is probably a step Google is doing in order to prevent it by saying, okay, there's now Google, which only does the web and operating systems and computers. But Alphabet does a lot of different things. It's an investment company. It has all those companies that are doing stuff like bringing internet, fast internet to people's houses, which is fiber, or building cars.
And getting all your personal information.
This is going to be Google itself.
Okay.
This is why they're going to say that there's a connection between all those companies, but they are separate companies.
Apparently, Larry Page is a big fan of Warren Buffett, and he's trying to remodel this thing after the Berkshire Hathaway remodel it. So it's kind of like a top mother company.
But the problem with that is that Google, unlike Warren Buffett, are not buying all those companies which are making money. Most of the companies they have are not making money except for Google. Google is the only company inside this Alphabet New Deal, which is the one that pays all the other companies to do whatever they want. And now Google is going to have like a company called, which is now Google X, their labs, which are doing all those sort of crazy things like Google Glass and and all the inventions, which is going to be just, I'm going to spread money. Where I'm thinking it's interesting, and I'm thinking for the
just because I can.
Yeah, just because I can.
As rich people do. Okay. Androids, though.
Okay, let's talk about Android. Android is going to be a part of Google, of the company Google, and Android at Google they are talking about the next billion.
The next billion?
The next billion, because there are now 1 billion users of Android mobile phones, 1 billion users.
1 billion users.
And now the new slogan
like the
is,
world.
who is going to be the next billion?
We have a commercial for this, don't we?
Yeah.
Let's take a look.
दुनिया कहती हैप्पी बर्थडे टू यू हैप्पी बर्थडे टू यू
I was about to go like this.
This is for the Indian market. Google.
Clearly for the Indian market.
It's clearly for the Indian market. Google. Android.
Wow,
Google
we're
has
looking for billions more people. Okay.
Yeah, and Google now has a program called Android One.
Right.
They launched it last year. It didn't succeed, so now they are relaunching it again. And the idea is to bring smartphones that will cost $50.
Oh.
Or less to the market and
to the Asian market,
to the Asian market
and flood it with Androids.
And they're going to start in India. They
brilliant idea, actually.
Yeah, they have programs with Indian media in order to bring exclusive content to their phones. And to try to lure Indians to a lot of Indians into the smartphone Android smartphone business. So they are trying to flood the market with a lot of these phones. They'll try. We still didn't see the $50 smartphone.
But the second we see them, I have a feeling that many of us will be going on vacation to India. Shai Ringel, I mean, I love you, and the shirt is interesting, putting me back in place to understand that I have no idea what current music is. But for that, we do have Ami Kaufman.
Well, I have no idea what current music is.
Yeah, but you were here with the web review that is the spiral viral that is the web review. And yeah.
Okay, we'll
kill
see.
my transition. Shoot me down.
What do we like to talk about? We like to talk about movies that really shouldn't be made, or musicals, for example, that shouldn't be made.
That shouldn't be made.
So this is a movie that's going to come out actually pretty soon, but it's in the making already. They're filming it. The female Ghostbusters.
I know.
But the news is that from this the Daily Mail that Bill Murray has been confirmed to have a cameo in the show. This is good news, I think. And also, by the way, Dan Aykroyd is also going to have a cameo. So both of them are going to be in this film.
Okay.
Some people are already, lifting their eyebrows, saying, I don't know, a bit pessimistic about this.
I'll tell you I'm pessimistic. I mean, I have a feeling, and I think Shai Ringel will agree with me, that don't be afraid. That Hollywood has run out of scripts.
Right.
They're sequeling everything.
Right.
Either sequeling or prequeling. You know, there's not one original thought. We can sit here saying this.
Yeah, Sony yesterday announced their new movies for the next couple of years. Jumanji, which we saw in the 90s.
Exactly.
Wow, are you serious?
Two new Bad Boys movies.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, two new, 3 and 4.
You know what?
It looked like you are looking at a 90s
at a 90s
movie
revival, and I'm waiting for the prequel to Gone with the Wind.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's the next one coming up.
All the creativity and the imagination is now in television. I think we all know that.
Definitely.
But further proof of what we just mentioned is the next movie that is going to be made. Listen to this. This is coming from the Vulture.
Right.
There will be a Pez dispenser movie.
Why do I feel
those plastic?
Of course I know the Pez dispensers. I grew up on the Pez dispensers, but I'm not going to knock this down because
You're not going to knock this down.
I'm not going to knock this down. I'm going to tell you. Hold on. I was pessimistic about the Lego Movie.
Okay.
Which was a huge success.
Right.
Come on, this may work.
What's the deal with taking objects
and
making movies about? There's a movie. There might be a movie about Monopoly, for example.
Monopoly, wow.
Wow.
And I always lost all my hotels in Monopoly. I always ended up in prison.
I don't know how it's going to work.
Yeah. Okay. And
Benedict Cumberbatch. Did I say no? Cumberbatch.
Cumberbatch.
I tried to say. I butchered his name.
Yeah. I love him as an actor. I hate him as an entity.
You hate him as an entity?
I love him as an actor. I hate him because listen. I mean, let's face it. He's gorgeous, okay? I can say that. He's incredibly talented.
He is.
He's very successful.
He is.
He grew up incredibly affluent, and he just married like one of the richest women in the world.
Who did he marry? I don't know.
I don't know. She's some like rich whiz intellectual.
He wanted more money than
even more. So, come on, let's sit here and say we hate people who are more successful than us, don't we? Yeah, Schadenfreude.
You know, he's playing Hamlet now in London.
Oh.
And he does not like it when people film with their phones and with their video.
Of course.
So he went out after the show, which was stopped, by the way, twice, because he had some technical glitches. But he went out to the show and actually pleaded in front of the audience, people that were waiting for his autograph, to stop filming. Let's see what he said.
Let's see.
Yeah, they did that, but it's blindingly obvious, like that one there, that little red light. It's very, very obvious. So we started again tonight with To Be or Not To Be, which is not the easiest place to be going to play, full stop. But for the second time, even harder. I could see a red light in about the third row on the right. It's mortifying. There's nothing less supportive or enjoyable as that to being on stage, experiencing that. And I can't give you what I want to give you, which is a live performance that you will remember, hopefully, in your minds and brains, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent.
It's mortifying.
It's mortifying. It's mortifying. Wait.
I want to hear this.
You're a nice actor, but you're not that good. Come on.
A little full of himself there.
It's as I just said before. You're not talented enough to be that pretentious.
Yes. Have you seen The Fifth Estate? Have you seen yourself like?
On The Fifth Estate, yeah. You're in the moment. Yes. Okay. And
Facebook apparently. Nobody says lol anymore. Facebook did a study. They researched how people express their laughter in Facebook in 1 month in May.
Okay.
And lol is not really used anymore. Do you have any idea what might be used to express, laughter in your status?
An emoji with the tears in their eyes?
Close, but there's one above that.
Okay.
Ha ha.
Oh, come on.
51.4% of people in May wrote ha ha.
Instead of lol.
But emoji came after ha ha.
Okay, with 30,
yeah, well, I don't know if it was with many types of emoji laughing. I don't know, 33.7.
Right.
And at 13.1% was he he. The H-E-H-E one. But lol came in at a very amazingly 1.9%.
I'm a loyal person. I'm a loyal person.
You still do lol?
I still do lol. I'm an AOL. I still do lol.
Yeah,
of course,
you've got mail. I hear that you've got mail all the time.
It's me and Tom Friedman who keep AOL alive. Yes.
Here's another video, a cute video that's going viral. This guy is called Ben Millam. He's trying to train his cat how to hunt for food in his house. So what he does is, well, let's see the video and
because
see what
I need
happens.
to study. Yes.
And there goes the food.
No. To hunt or to bring balls into a funky-looking machine so he can get his food.
He puts balls all over the house.
Okay.
And the balls have these little detectors on them or something. I don't know.
Okay.
And the minute that the cat puts them in there, the food comes out.
I'm going to call the RSPC. I'm sorry, that's abuse.
You think so?
Yes.
I think it's pretty cool.
Leave the cat alone. Just give him, if you like the cat, give him food.
Cat likes to, you want to hunt.
Cat likes to hunt. No, cat's hungry. Cat wants food. Cat needs to find ball. I don't know.
I think it keeps
animal
the brain.
Cruelty. Yes.
Well, speaking of animal cruelty, a rhino baby. This is from the New York Daily News. A rhino baby in South Africa. His mother was killed by poachers.
Yes.
And you can see this picture here.
Yes.
He was missing his mother, and he saw a gray Jeep, and he thought that was his mom, and he went up and tried to cuddle, really cuddle the Jeep. I can see this getting your motherly...
yeah, I know. It's the motherly instinct in me. Or I'm thinking of taking my kids out to the parking lot and to see if this works. Just kidding.
Oh.
But...
and you want to bring the RSPCA on that guy.
Nobody did. Not just pass right past through. Yes, and...
a nice thing that BuzzFeed does that always goes viral is how they try to put normal people in normal clothes as compared to, the ads. See how normal people look compared to all the beautiful models.
Right.
And now they're doing it with men, and Calvin Klein...
Thank God.
Let's see a few pictures. Calvin Klein underwear ads.
Okay.
So they're taking some of their staff and showing how they look.
I would go for the guy with the tattoos and going straight to the discussion Shai-Ringel and I had outside of the studio.
This is Kevin. Very
Kevin
cute.
As opposed to... Okay, yeah, I like thinner
That's
guy.
Mark Wahlberg, I think.
I know, that's Mark Wahlberg back in the days
let's
of...
see the next one. Let's keep going with him.
And?
Yeah. That's Justin Bieber. That's pretty much how I look at him.
Again, I would go for chubby guy. Okay.
You like the chubby guy?
I like the chubby. No, Justin Bieber just got the look.
This guy actually looks pretty good. I don't know.
Yeah, who looks bad in this one? They both look good.
They look, yeah.
Yeah, I trust a man with a bit of a gut. Don't you? Come on.
Well, certainly. Speaking as a man with a gut. I have what they call the dad bod. You remember the dad bod?
I'm trying to. Shai Ringel here is slowly but surely dying next to me.
He's falling asleep already.
Yes, I know. We've got to. Ooh, I think that's all the time that we have, even though I haven't heard anything. Guys, thank you for being with us. I-24 News Morning Edition, Twitter, Facebook. Check us out on all those places. And tune in tomorrow morning for another edition of The Place You Should Be, because I throw things at Shai Ringel. Yes, catch my pen.